Good evening, folks. I'm glad y'all decided to join Brother Carson in thinking about my new show, Race Matters. I'm here just to bring the funk to y'all this evening about a lot of serious things we're going to talk about. We're going to have a good time, but it's also important that we understand that we're going to delve into these really challenging issues that are facing us here in the 21st century. So my name is Edward Carson. I'm the Dean of Multicultural Education over at the Governor's Academy. I am a 20th century American historian of race and religion, and I write, I think a lot about black thought, black ideology, in particular the ways in which folks across the color line need to engage in critical discourse and dialogue. As we open up this show, this is my very first epic one. I'm looking forward to it. We'll have a series of guests in here, talk about a lot of different challenging issues. Tonight, I want to talk to you about the topic here, which is the problem of the 21st century is still the color line. Now, as we think about that, and as we really wrestle with this a little bit, and I hope y'all will just have a good time with this soul brother. You know, we gotta pause just for a second, right? And we gotta talk about the title of the show, Race Matters. You know, folks ask me all the time, Brother Carson, what did you come up with that title? And if I have to be honest and transparent, my wife, she's the one who came up with it. She said, these are the things that we have to delve into. We have to talk about all the elements that deals with race, class, gender, the intersectionality of challenges that are really dynamic and problematic as we work through this narrative in so many ways. So, as we start with this, why the title Race Matters? I think it dates back, oh wow. I take you back to probably when I was in high school. And there were 3 books that have just had a big time impact on this brother's soul. 3 books that I talk about to this day. 3 books that I continue to reread, I teach, I talk about all the time. Better yet, I feel prophetic and religious in terms of how much I delve into these. You know, that first book by that brother by the name of W.E.B. Du Bois. He wrote a piece called The Souls of Black Folks, which we're going to talk about a little bit more as we move into this conversation tonight. The other book, Invisible Man, published roughly around 1952 by Ralph Ellison. And in the last book, written by this brother who had a huge impact on me when I was in high school and college and graduate school. And, this brother works I continue to read and think about quite a bit. The book is called Race Matters. And I think you can kind of get the connection between the title of this show, Race Matters, and that of Brother Wes's book. So as we delve into this, we want to really hold on to these truths. And so as we think about just all the things we're going to talk about a little bit, I want to start off with asking folks this question right here. Or better yet, I want to tell you what the real question is. The real question here is, how does it feel to be a problem? Right? Think about that for a second. How does it feel to be a problem? I answer seldom, a word. I think about this oftentimes, a problem. Being a problem is a strange experience. And Du Bois wrestled with this. Black folks wrestled with this a couple centuries ago. Black folks continue to wrestle with this even today. This notion, this peculiar sensation, even for one who's never been a problem, but to be seen that way. And so for folks who look like me, people, the reality is that's oftentimes the emotional reality of how we feel. For people who don't look like me, that creates and that positions some challenges, right? Some of those challenges start with the fact that, Brother Carson, how are you a problem? You seem to be successful. You're writing some stuff, publishing some stuff. You're off venturing around and doing good things. Things seem to be really, really well in terms of your life. But yet, that idea of being a problem doesn't change the dynamic sometimes when I walk into a store and people stare me down. They're curious about me. or I ask for help in different ways that I make people nervous? Is it because of my identity? Is it the way I look? And those are the things that we have to think about. How do we engage in these critical conversations about the fact that sometimes I feel like that I'm a problem? And people who look like me also feel that way. But yet I also am aware, right? Because, I got to keep in mind my white soul brothers, soul sisters, and non-binary folks who are going to say, but what have I done to you? Why is this so crucial? Why are you always talking about this stuff so often? I bring us to that book, Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. He opened it up with this question of invisibility. And what does it mean to feel invisible? I am an invisible man. No, I'm not a spook like those who hunted Edgar Allan Poe, nor am I one of those Hollywood movie ectoplasms or something like that I believe that soul brother once phrased. I am a man of substance, of flesh and bone, of fiber and liquids. And I might even be said to have a mind. I may have to think for myself. Could that be poisonous in different ways? I am invisible, understand, simply because people refuse to see me. They refuse to see who I am. They refuse to get past this idea of this blackness, right? What does that mean? These conditions that have shaped folks in terms of how we think about identity and how we treat and how we engage and how we interact with other folks. Ellison once talked about how the fact that people refuse to see him because he's dangerous, because he possesses a mind, but yet he asks folks to understand simply because people just refuse to see him. And then I also offer this question: do people refuse to see you? Do they refuse to see me? Where do we go in terms of this dialogue as we move forward in talking about the problem of the 21st century, which is the problem of the color line? Like the bodiless heads you see sometimes in a circus sideshow. It is though I have been surrounded by mirrors of hard, distorting glass. When people approach me, they see only my surroundings through this distorted glass. Themselves or figments of their imagination. Indeed, they see everything and anything except for me. But as we think about this brother Ellison here for a second, I think we need to really contemplate, what does that mean to feel invisible? This threat, this sense of how does it feel to be a problem? I'm going to come back to that a little bit later because I do want us to think about that as we move forward. I want to tell you the story. And for us to have real conversations about race, and that's what the show Race Matters is about, we got to have conversations. I'm going to make sure that I give you my email information. That way you can reach out. If you have questions, if you want to sit down and you want to talk to a soul brother, and I want to engage in those conversations with you because that's what I'm about. I'm about truth. Truth-telling, telling the truth about the reality of the color line here in the 21st century. My senior year, I was in high school, and I had my mom's car. I think I was out on Old Wetumpka Road or somewhere just kind of a little bit outside of the city of Montgomery, Alabama, and I got a flat tire. Somehow, this brother forgot to put the jack back in the car. Stuck, wondering, right? This is before the rise of cell phones. What am I going to do here? I start just walking down the road for a little bit, and a car pulls up beside me. Now, folks, I want to remind you, when I was in high school, I was a pretty good baller, right? I mean, all conference this, all this, had a little bit of success playing ball, about 230-pound running back and linebacker, even went off to play a little college ball. And I'm sitting here, and they're in this car. There are these three white, skinny dudes from Montgomery, Alabama. They couldn't weigh any more than 150 pounds. And they pulled over and they said, "Do you need any help?" You can kind of imagine that with that whole southern accent and everything, too. I approached the car, and the only thing I could think about is the fact that there are three skinny white dudes asking me for a ride with a big old Confederate flag on the back of their windshield on their car. In my mind, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I can hop in this car I'm big, I'm bad, I'm okay. But yet, at the end of the day, I start thinking, what happened if those dudes just decide to lynch me? What if this is it? There's nothing I can do. I didn't have a conversation about the fact that they had that Confederate flag, that I was nervous about getting in that car. The only thing I can think about is the sense that my blackness really precluded me from moving forward with that. As we think about these stories and these narratives, as we wrestle with this on Race Matter, we as people in this space are people of love and social justice. As we reflect on the plight of black and brown people, but also our interracial capacity to have conversations with white folks, indigenous folks, Asian American folks, queer folks, straight folks, women, non-binary, all those folks, we got to seek this element of unity and addressing that the problem of the 21st century is the color line. And it is the same problem that W.E.B. Du Bois presented going all the way back to when he published the book Souls of Black Folks in 1903. He asked the question, what is the problem of the 20th century? And he confessed that it was the color line. I'm here in the year 2021, and I'm telling you, the problem of the 21st century is still that of the color line. As we ponder the past and present realities of black folks, I would like us to stay here a little bit with W.E.B. Du Bois. And if you don't know that brother, you got to get to know him. Take a second and look him up. Email me, and I'll give you that contact information a little bit later. We'll have a conversation about why he is prophetic, why he is someone that we all need to know. Du Bois, in his essay, Spiritual Strivings, he allows the reader to grasp this dogged reality and something that he faced in the 20th century. And of course, as we continue to face in the 21st century, his Atlantic essay, I believe it was titled Strivings of the Negro People, he notes that it is a peculiar sensation, this double consciousness, this sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others, of measuring one's soul by the tape of a world that looks on and imbues contempt and pity. One never feels his two-ness. An American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideas in one dark body whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder. You see, this is the American identity as folks wrestle with. Am I American enough because I'm a black man? Am I African American? But if I'm African American, does that include all the elements that really invites me to a space? Because oftentimes people naturally create these boundaries, these walls that are there. Those are the things I want us to think about a little bit here too. And these things just didn't pop up here in the 21st century, folks. I mean, I'm talking about the narrative of black folks because I'm a black man. I'm a black man living in this country and trying to make sense, even at my age, even with my intellect, even with my knowledge, even with my level of confidence, even with ego. And I do have a little bit of ego that's there. I'm still trying to make sense of this. But yet, maybe this is the question, and this is the stuff on this show we have to wrestle with. We have to sit down and we have to talk about this idea of what does it mean for me to be black in America? But see, maybe we need to have a conversation too about why do white folks think it's a problem? Because I feel like I am the problem. And I have been asked to feel this way in different times too. I think those are some of the things that we have to delve into. This history of black folks is the history of strife, this longing to attain self-conscious manhood, or better yet, peoplehood, to merger our double self into a better and truer self. In this merging, we wish neither of the older selves to be lost. We don't want to lose that aspect of it. We don't want to fully Africanize America, as Du Bois contended, for America has a lot to teach the world, and we'll give folks that. But we also know that Africa has a lot to teach America too. And yet for me, as someone who identifies as black, not African American, but I am black in a universal sense, I feel like I have much to teach America too, because my narrative is different from other folks. You know, Du Bois, and I love this, in his souls and his spiritual strivings, he contended the fact that he wouldn't bleach his black blood in a flood of white Americanism, for he knows that Negro blood has a message for the world, and he understands that and that rhetoric that's there. He simply wishes to make it possible for a man to be both black and American without being cursed and spit upon by his fellows, without having the doors of opportunity closed on him roughly in his face. You know, that's what he was wrestling with in so many ways. You know, as we think about these strivings of black people, we have to think about the fact that these strivings occur within a whirlwind of, and here's that word, and this is a term that we're going to hear throughout this show, because in order to be real about race, in order to be real about the problem of the 21st century, we have to have, folks, an honest conversation about white supremacy. And what does white supremacy look like? It is, it's grand, it is ubiquitous, it is everywhere. White supremacy has this paramount clawing, choking feeling on society, in which white supremacy hurts not only good old white folks who don't profess nor buy into that method and ideology, but what it does to other folks too, how it wrecks the consciousness of our very existence to engage and move forward in the ways that we need to do so. We have to think about this term white supremacy, you know, that is as a response to the vicious attacks on things like black beauty, black intellect, black morality, and yes, folks, black possibility. But better yet, we have to talk about how that term white supremacy impacts this notion of interracial collectiveness. You see, when I break bread with folks, I break bread with all kind of folks. I believe in that interracial connection in order for us to mend the color line. And that's the goal. And that's what we're going to do on this show. We're going to delve into some challenging conversations about how do we mend the color line here in the 21st century. But let's just be honest here. Again, I'm a truth teller. And as you continue to tune in, as you reach out to me, as we have conversations, you're going to learn a lot about the fact that I want to have these conversations. I'm open ears. I'm a soul brother. I got much to offer and I have much to learn. This merciless attack in the year 2021, as in the past, on black humanity and other folks of color too, indigenous peoples, Asian American, multiracial, biracial folks. Often it pushes the notion of black invisibility and invisibility of other folks into this nameless clause that's going to be there. And we have to really kind of delve in and understand what that namelessness means. So what does this black invisibility and namelessness mean? You know, I'm going to speak from my perspective, folk, because again, I'm a soul brother. You know, we kind of entered into this space when we started this time off listening to that brother Kamasi Washington, and we heard the song Truth. And Kamasi Washington, he really spoke to the idea that black people as a problem people rather than people experiencing problems. Think about that for a second. This notion that black people as a problem people rather than people experiencing problems. Yeah, you know, I want to engage in the show because I think it's important that I speak directly, particularly to white folks, and really to share these experiences by the fact that, you know, black folks oftentimes feel that we have been portrayed as a problem people, but yet not in a way in which we are wrestling with the problems that exist. Black people as abstractions, as if I can throw that out, on objects rather than individuals, because that's kind of often the reality and the type of spaces we have to navigate through. Black and white worlds divided by a veil. And that brother Du Bois talks about that veil quite a bit. That veil requires mask wearing. And I don't mean this kind of mask, folks. I'm not talking about this, okay? I'm talking about the kind of mask oftentimes that really creates distance, and it keeps us from really having truthful and honest conversations about the things we need to talk about that deal with issues of race and why race matters. That blackened world divided by this veil and how it requires how we think about these masks. Or, as I like to put it, asking folks who look like me to rethink our identity, to code switch in a way in which we make white audiences feel comfortable. That way we say the right thing, we operate in a particular way, we make them really feel that we are present in ways that make us feel invisible and not present. So I bring us back to the question here as we delve into this show, Race Matters. How does it feel to be a problem? To view black people as a problem is to view us as outsiders rather than insiders. Folks who are looking at a world in which we're not fully sure we belong. And we're wrestling with that today, as it's going to take an interracial vanguard, a capacity of folks to really think about the challenges that have really been targeting black folks. Voting rights is, I've got to start off with that one just for a second. But yet even this notion of being an outsider starts back well over a century ago. Du Bois talks about this idea of two-ness. Being an American, Du Bois would say being a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, and two unreconciled strivings. Those are the things that he wrestled with. And folks, these are the things that we wrestle with today. This two-folded identity construction is pertinent to the question raised by such controversial conversations that have to happen. How does it feel to be a problem? Are black people Americans, or are they outsiders? Voting rights being under attack. Questions about black morality and black identity. Black knowledge and black education. These are all the things sometimes within the pathology of whiteness that people of color, particularly black people, have to wrestle with. Yes, even white New England liberals have to wrestle and contend that there is a way to be black and to embrace black identity. I'm not talking about my hometown of Montgomery, Alabama here, people. I'm talking about Newburyport. I'm talking about Boston. I'm talking about Hartford, Connecticut, Providence, Rhode Island. I'm talking about this area. I'm not talking about the deep south of Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Texas, Louisiana, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. I'm talking about right here in our hometown, that these issues are present, and these are the issues and the conversations that we have to engage in. We have to talk about the problem of the 21st century in the ways in which there are things that are present even in good old liberal Newburyport that makes a brother like me feel uncomfortable, unsafe. There's nothing like feeling unsafe in a community, being forced sometimes to feel like an outsider and not necessarily the insider, being asked to project a certain way of blackness. And again, we know liberals love this a lot. There is a certain way to be black. How about that brother Barack Obama? Right? We like Barack Obama. He's kind of comfortable. He's a little safe in so many ways. But not everyone's Barack Obama. And I'm here to tell you, this soul brother right here is definitely not Barack Obama. Not at all. And I think back to Jordan Peele's show. Y'all may recall this, Get Out. And the show Get Out. If you haven't seen this before, it really is an examination on the reality of the lens of racism through this notion of horror that presents this aspect of victimization that's challenging in so many ways. This horror, this conflict, right, that black people are wrestling and trying to get out of, in which they're trapped within this white liberal world in which folks want to pass away that it's okay to be this way, but is it really okay to be that way? Oh, I'm just ranting here. I'm gonna dial it back because it's a conversation we need to have a little bit later. And if you haven't delved into that show, I think it's worth it. I think back to, are black people presented in various different ways in communities? Are they welcome as insiders? Du Bois is of spiritual strivings. really connects to one of my favorite poems that I wanted to share with folks today. And that poem is Crying of Water by Arthur Simmons. And Arthur spells that last name Simmons with a Y, S-Y. And Arthur Simmons captures the early essence of black struggles in America, but particularly black struggles on the vicious Middle Passage. And there's an interesting juxtaposition from the Middle Passage to where we are in the 21st century, because no one wants to talk about the viciousness of white supremacy of the past. No one wants to talk about the trepidation of the Atlantic. No one wants to talk about Charlottesville just in 2017. No one wants to talk about George Floyd. No one wants to delve into that stuff. No one wants to wrestle with all of those things that should stay neatly wrapped up somewhere else. Folks want to move forward and pretend that we've moved beyond this. But we haven't done that yet. I give you this poem here. Crying of Water by Arthur Simmons. And it reads, "Oh water, voice of my heart, crying in the sand. All night long crying with a mournful cry, as I lie and listen and cannot understand the voice of my heart in my side or the voice of the sea. O water, crying for rest, is it I? Oh, is it I? All night long the water is crying to me. Unresting water, there shall never be rest till the last moon drop and the last tide fell. And the fire of the end began to end as it burned in the west. And the heart shall be weary and wonder and cry like the sea. All life long crying without avail, as the water all night long is crying. It's crying to me, folks. I mean, think about that for a second as we talk about the problems of the 21st century. We're not talking about the 17th century here. We're talking about 2021. This metaphorical association which runs deep with black expression. When we think about the trepidation of the sea and listening and hearing, we aim to scream in our pronouncement that we are here, a great race, not invisible, not savages or heathens, but really a great people who wants to delve into conversations about our past. And as we delve into these conversations about our past, we have to think about the challenges that are there. And I think back to a book that I've taught a number of times, particularly in my African American Studies course. This literary brother that I suspect many of you know, named Richard Wright. He had this character named Bigger Thomas. And Bigger Thomas was in this book titled Native Son, had a face that was really metallically black. Bigger's existence was to be black. Black like Coolio, black like Tupac, black like Biggie, black like me. A lot of ways to be black. Black like Sister Toni Morrison, or the late Sister Toni Morrison, or black like my mom, or my dad, or my brother, my niece, my nephew. And with this blackness comes struggle. Yet we fight the odds and we continue to see that our minds and our greatness, not the lies, really bring forth this idea, particularly those that exist within this capitalist society. Du Bois stated, "Why did God make me an outcast and a stranger in my own house?" W.B. Du Bois exclaimed in his essay, as I noted, of spiritual strivings, as he pondered being a problem, a seventh son after other civilizations. The Negro watched indigenous folks, Romans, Greeks, and Mongolians take a position of authority over the simple Negro. This white world reminded black folks of their inferiority, yet promised them a place with God if they believed. And though early playground rejections would impact his later pathology, and particularly the way he thought towards black radicalism, it was a sense of understanding that equality in America could be achieved. Though by his death, Du Bois concluded that America was not fully ready for black folks. Notice that change that happened. That brother would die in the year 1963, August 27th, 1963. Du Bois shaped this double consciousness as a sense of racial awareness. This veil. It was within the metaphorical veil that black people faced oppression. In order to deal with oppression in themselves as a race, black folks must become aware of this. This point seems silly, I know, but yet the reality and how we think about oppression and marginalization is true in so many ways, and true in a way that we cannot really dismiss that. You know, as I bring this first episode to a close, people, I want to say this. We're here to talk about a lot of positions, a lot of challenging matters, things going from white symbolism that makes folks who look like me feel the semblance of oppression and fear, to why white folks fear people who look like me. Those are the conversations we're going to have. We're going to really delve into the black elite and the black bourgeoisie and think about whether or not black folks have betrayed other black folks. We got to talk about this notion of intersectionality. What does it mean to be a black queer woman in the 21st century? What does it mean to be Asian or Asian American and feel the semblance of hostility towards you as we really wrestle with this? But you know, one of the things that I want to know about too, and we're going to wrestle with, is the issue of whiteness, the privilege of whiteness, why white folks reject notions of whiteness as a privilege. Or what does it mean to be white as an identity? Or what does it mean to have conversations with me about aspects of race and race matters? You know, and I know, as the great black novelist, essayist, and social commentary James Baldwin once framed about this country when he voiced, I quote, and I think I'm going to get this quote right, that the country is celebrating 100 years of freedom 100 years too soon. That radical black queer brother who was an amazing commentary and essayist, who wrote countless works on the condition of America and on the issue of race and what does it mean to be a problem. That brother really talked about the problems of the 20th century because he wants us to think about the problems of the 21st century today. And if you are ready to go down that road, if you're ready to have that conversation with me, if you're ready to engage and to listen and to really listen to the critiques that I have to offer, then I think you're going to find some profound growth, energy, and soulness that's going to be here. That's what I'm here to do, folks. I appreciate y'all who have chimed in and listened. And look, if you have a question for me, if you want to reach out, I'm going to give you my contact information, okay? You can reach me at racematterspodcast@gmail.com. I'm going to say that one more time. My contact information is racematterspodcast, podcast, @gmail.com. And as we leave this show and as I bring it to a close, I'm going to leave you with this prophetic thought. And that is this, and this is important for me and for all of us to keep in mind. Never forget that justice is what love looks like in public. That is what radical love is, and that's how all folks, all types have to embrace and love each other. Thank you, folks. I appreciate y'all for chiming in to the first episode of Race Matters. And as we bring this to an end, we're going to move forward, and I hope you'll chime in the future. I look forward to it. Take care. Thank you.